Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Lori.
And J.DP, and you are excellent. Welcome to Coach's Corner, year-end edition. We're so excited that 2024 is in the rearview mirror. And so we're going to start with morning 2024. I am in total regalia here to bid a fond adieu to 2024. We're just going to recap what 2024 was for us. So Lori, how about you? Any thoughts on 2024?
Wow, 2024. It might sound trite, but for me, it was a year like no other, in good and bad ways, right?
Mm.
And the best side of things, I became a grandmother, a gorgeous baby girl. Highlight of my life, it's as good as people said and better. There were a lot of other things that were not so positive highlights, but in the end, I'm with you. I think we need to say adios to 2024
Adios, girl.
to recognize what I learned from that, and to acknowledge from me that despite what this year brought me, I landed on my feet and I will be okay. And I learned a lot of positive things about myself. So in my work as a coach, that kind of self-reflection is helpful for me as I work with clients to do that same work. Right? We're all doing the same work. And I needed to learn, I need to look back and reflect and learn the lesson and not stuff it in a box and put it on a shelf. Right?
Lori, when the year started, we were both bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? And we were doing our thing, Coach's Corner and this and that, and having fun. But then the year went on, and it just kind of like our lives started happening, even with like somebody ratcheted up the intensity to 11,
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that when I was approached and said, like, by someone who's like, what's going on with you? And I realized, snap. So the coach needs a coach. The coach needs to be coached. And you were there in great support in helping me get through the year. But still, it was like, how do I find my uniqueness or rediscover my uniqueness, my resilience, and my excellence? And sometimes that's not an easy thing to do. And so 2024 challenged me in that way.
I love, you said a word that I loved, and that was rediscovering, right? Rediscovering. So some of you know, John, J.DP, and some of your listeners know that I retired 2 years ago, early, from a 30-year career as a professor. And so the last few years have been a rediscovery for me of who I am and where my strengths are and what my value is, and particularly this year. And so, we're going to talk about some of these things as we go on, but I think that theme of rediscovery is resonating with me.
So let us bow our heads and let us say bye, farewell to 2024. We were challenged. And from that year, we found growth. We went in as caterpillars, and now we're about ready to break through the cocoon and show ourselves in 2025 as the beautiful butterflies that we are.
Rediscovery and transformation.
Oh my God. Can we use that for themes for 2025? Rediscovery and transformation?
Write that down. That was excellent.
Girl, you are excellent. See what I did there?
You see what you did there.
Rediscovery and transformation. So let's focus on the year in review. So Lori, taking a step back from 2024, what did you learn this year?
It's a great question. I have had actually, it was your idea. I started doing something on LinkedIn every Friday. I share with people that I'm connected to, celebrate your wins. Right. And so one of the things I've really learned is to celebrate all of the wins, because the little things are the big things. I've learned that for me, and I've learned that from my clients. I've seen that in my clients as they discover it. So sometimes it's a tweak in the way that they see a challenge. Sometimes it's a tweak in the way that they communicate that ends up, a small pebble rolling down the hill and becomes this big thing later. And for me too, the littlest things, I had a personal one of those celebrate your wins, which was a life is a negotiation, Lori. You got to remember that. And it's a rediscovery of that. Let them. You can't control everything. Let them be upset at what you propose or let them not be upset. So for me, that was one of the big things for me is that the little things really are the big things. And that you don't have to, your impact doesn't have to be on this great big giant scale of things. Because before I retired, I always judged myself on the scale of impact. And I don't feel that way anymore. I mean, I do, but I don't. So the little things are the big things. I'm gonna start with that and pass it to you. I have others, but
so what have I learned this year? I learned that the importance of community. And I'll be honest with you, being a solopreneur has an emphasis on solo. Right. And so I found my community with the International Coaching Federation New Jersey chapter. And I got to tell you, shout out to everybody at the ICF New Jersey. Y'all are amazing. Keep it up. And also New York City, because I made the ICF chapter in New York City. I made contacts over there as well. As Woody Allen said, 90% is just showing up. Right? I showed up. I went to a meeting or two. I went to this, I went to that. And before you know it, I'm meeting all these crazy, interesting people. I'm inviting people to be interviewed. I'm being invited to be interviewed. Community, there's something about it that if you haven't found yours, get out there and go find it. And that's what I learned this year.
It's an interesting segue, and I'll riff off that. My second big thing that I learned was the power of connection.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it has to do, I think you're right. I think part of it has to do with, the change in my own world from being an employee for a very long time at one organization to doing this on my own and to realize that a couple of things. One, the number of people that I have touched in my life that can be part of this next step, but also the power of people, very much who have been here for me in the way that I am being there for other people. That has been remarkably important to me.
Yeah.
In business and in personal, the power of connection and support, right? People, much the story of you and me. We both took the ICF credentialing exam this year.
Oh my God. Remember that?
I do. We spent an awful lot of hours working towards that. And while I'm quite sure that we could have done it on our own, it was more effective, more fun, more productive to do it together. And more so, we're cheering each other on. And that's huge.
That's great. I found a picture actually of when I was studying and all of these study materials I had. And Lori had a great way of looking at the exam and having administered in her career. She's very humble and God bless her. So she's administered and created thousands and thousands of exams for even thousands and thousands more students in her professional career. And I remember she said to me, she's like, if you're looking at a question and dumbass fits nicely in the answer, then more than likely it's the wrong answer. And as I was taking the exam, and this is the ICF exam is a very serious 3-hour plus exam.
It's tough.
Questions that you have to answer. One question you have to answer twice, right? What's the best answer? What's the worst answer? And as I'm going through this, I started laughing at a point because I heard Lori go, "Does dumbass fit?" But
yeah.
I could not have made it through that exam without your knowledge and good humor. So thank you for that.
When, right back at you, for those of you who don't know, my friend J.DP is a master at organization and systems. And it was remarkably helpful to me when I was, some of you might feel you're sort of procrastinating, you're putzing around, you don't have a system, it feels overwhelming. And here comes my friend J.DP. And he's like, no, a Google Doc. We're going to do this. And it kicked my butt enough to go, okay, Lori, you remember how to do this, right? You know how to do this. Do it.
And this coming from somebody who's been taking exams and administering exams for 30 years. And you had a really interesting story that you told me. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you do it wherever you can find time. And what I realized was, once you and me kicked my butt and got myself into gear, the old habits come back, right? So what was really funny for me is that what helped me in that exam was going back to what I did, as an undergraduate so many years ago, a really long time ago already. And so wherever I was, I took those study materials and I would pull them out and I would practice and practice and practice. And it reminded me of sitting at the undergraduate library at the University of Michigan doing thousands upon thousands upon thousands of statistics problems. I had that same flashback. Do you know what? It worked. So yeah, for me, that's part of this rediscovery, right? About the stuff that you forget. I was retired for a year before I started come back to this. You forget, like I had systems, I had processes, they've worked for me. I don't have to put everything in my little butterfly box and stick it on the shelf. There are things that served me well and that allowed me to succeed. Some stuff stays in the box, right? But my study habits got me through undergrad, got me through grad school, and apparently got me through the ICF exam. And so, yeah, I don't think it was the beach. I think I told you I was with my mother-in-law at the beauty shop.
Yes. Okay. Beauty shop, beach, both begin with B. But here's the takeaway for me is, and you said in one of our conversations, you said, these good habits that I established long ago, I had to dust them off, but they were good habits. They were they came back in service of my goal. So everything that you learn, you don't necessarily need to unlearn. However, like you said about your butterfly box, right? And my mother used to call them good old bad habits. Good old bad habits go in the box, but the good old good habits, let's dust those off and let's take them for a test drive every once in a while. Maybe, we might learn something.
Right. Love it. Good old bad habits can
Good
stay.
old bad habits. 2024, good old bad habits. You're out. So, hey, as I look back on 2024, I look back at successes, right? And what are you most proud of in 2024? You have had quite the journey of this year, and so have I. What are you most proud of?
So I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna think about this actually from my client's perspective. So in those, celebrate your Fridays, one of the things that I have talked about recently was I had a win because my client had a win. So I would love to share a few of those wins because for me, look, this is no different and much the same as my work as a professor. And this is part of why I love this work so much is the seeing people come into their own.
Okay, let's do this. Let's tag team. So you tell your story because I have a story and then we'll tag team.
Perfect.
Okay. So you're up.
The story I want to tell is about one of my very favorite clients. They're all amazing, but one of my very favorite clients who learned and put into practice and internalized the lesson of sit with the silence.
Sit with the silence.
Sit with the silence. Many people, me included, at times have a tendency to over-explain, keep talking, don't give people time to process because we're nervous. We think we need to fill space. And so this particular client had a challenging annual review to do with one of her direct reports and had some hard stuff to say. And so we did a lot of practice. I mean, this is a tiny example. We did a lot of practicing. She delivered the message straightforward. She used, some of you may have read the book Radical Candor.
Yes.
Used the principles from this book about caring personally and challenging directly, and then sitting with the silence. Let people process. Let them let them process. And when I checked in with that client, how did it go? I just texted them, how did it go? I got back this amazing text. Went so much better than I could have hoped. The person acknowledged that I didn't attack them. I gave them space. They heard what was being said. They might not have been happy, but they heard what was being said. It was a huge win for the person who was getting the review. It was a huge win for my client. And it was a huge win for me to see my client.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so fulfilling, isn't it?
There is nothing better for me than to see somebody come into their own, to recognize what they had, whether it's a little tweak or a big lesson to learn. That client is forever changed.
And what seems on the outside such a small thing.
The little things are the big.
When you're that person, it's monumental. But when you attack it in a direct way and with intention, how that big thing all of a sudden goes, oh, that wasn't so bad. Overcoming fear is a big part of that.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. What's yours? I want to hear one of your ones.
Okay. So along those same lines, it's not one client. It was a few. I'll just leave it there. So I was in session and the client came to me and said, I'm not getting anywhere in my career. Okay, my manager doesn't really communicate. Oh, okay. Tell me about your last check-in with your manager. And this person said that it was very cordial. They have a great relationship, but they talk about sports, talk about this, talk about that, anything other than what that person's goal and career goals were. And I said, okay, let me send you a little checklist here, right? So the checklist is overall, what are my career goals? What do I want to get out of this conversation? And how can I get my manager to support me in my goals? And I said, okay, next time you talk to your manager, have this checklist on hand. And now the checklist is more detailed than this, but right. But in essence, boils down to those three things. Don't you know that the next week, the person had their check-in with their manager? Literally 5 minutes after that meeting, the person writes back to me and says, oh my God, my manager said that was, of everybody on the team, that was the most directed meeting that they have had in years. And they are now on my side to help me get to where I want to go in terms of, in this case, was a promotion. I was like, what? Go you. So exciting.
It's so interesting, right? It's another small thing that's really a big thing. And one of the lessons, as I'm listening to you, that I take out of that, and I hope, I suspect your client did too, is I guess there's several things actually in my mind. You got to manage up.
Mm.
Even your manager, who you think got there because they're so good at managing, we're all figuring it out as we go. The person's manager might not have known how to have really effective one-on-ones. So you got to ask for what you want, and you got to be proactive, and you got to manage up.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it is,
knows what they're doing.
The whole thing about it is all of the above, and walk in with okay, this is going to be another story, but and I don't want to cut the line here, but the bottom line is when you have a one-on-one with your manager, it is not your manager's responsibility to further your career. It is your responsibility to further your career. And URXcellent has all kinds of crazy strategies and stuff like that to help guide you through those conversations. Shameless plug. So, Lori, what's your next story?
Ooh, my next story. So this is so like you, I had several clients go through this process. And I think I want to, if I'm theming this, I want to say found their voice and own their value. And, this is something we do at URXcellent as well, right? Helping people understand who you are, what you bring to the table, and show the world that. Show the world that. Don't hide it. No false modesty. Show the world. So I'm thinking of one client that I worked with that was a military veteran who had been now coming back, and he's actually had worked for Apple and Meta. And actually, he was working for Meta and he ended up getting a job at Apple. Work we did was in him being able to clearly talk about the value he brought to the table, from both his military experience and his civilian experience, talk about it in the interview. And you know what? We spent a lot of time working on his LinkedIn profile because that's out there for anyone to Google. And the few hours that we spent, number one, from an outsider's perspective, you sit back and go, wow. And from his perspective, and maybe this is more important to me, he started to see himself as the kick-ass person that he is. Dang. He was like, I did that? Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And that's unique to this one particular client. I probably have had 4 or 5 clients this year who've had that
Yeah. And so everybody out there watching, hot tip. There's your brag book in 2025. I want to see you create a brag book because even though as we go along our careers, we're having impact. We're doing some pretty amazing things that in the heat of the moment, it's like, that's a small thing. But it accumulates. And when you look back on it, you're like, oh my God, did I do that? You just wind up sounding like Steve Urkel. Did I do that?
And hot tip, another client that I did this work with, we were working on getting him some recommendations in his LinkedIn profile. And he, and I said, well, who have you worked with? What kind of impact, who? And he wrote to these folks and they were like, absolutely. And they wrote him these beautiful recommendations. And the same thing, did I do? Yes, you sure as heck did. And you know what? Those recommendations in LinkedIn are now on his profile forever, right? And so it's a change in how others see you. And for me, much like we've talked about you and I, it's a change in how these clients saw themselves. And that's the kind of change that can blossom and grow and transform.
Okay. I have a story for you.
Okay.
My last story, and this is interesting. So this one person I work with was recently laid off and came to me and said, I'm trying to get this new job. I have several opportunities, but one in particular I'm really interested in. And so I coached this person on their resume. Well, before I even did that, what do they value? What are their goals? What are they after? Because again, when I work with my clients, especially, I say to them, you can get a job anywhere, but a job is not a career.
100%.
Right then and there, let's change our mindset, right? And I understand that you have pressure to whatever your personal commitments are, your financial commitments are, whatever, you need to get a job. But more importantly, you need to further your career. And so this person started out with, shotgun, scattergun, shitting resumes everywhere, all over the place, and very frustrated because they're not getting response.
Of course.
And so hot tip, focus your job search. What are you really after? And the only way you're going to do that is to really understand that you're driving your career. It's your goals and your values that are driving these opportunities. Once this person did that, all of a sudden, from 30 or 40 resumes going out a week to now 5 or 6 going out a week. And oh, by the way, getting responses. So fast forward, maybe it was like a month. Fast forward, this person says, oh, hey, I got the job. Great. Thank you very much for your help. And I asked the next question. So what's your job? What's your strategy for this job once you get in the door? And what? What is your strategy once you walk in the door? What are you going to do? Not only of course, you're going to do your best at doing your job, but the first thing you need to do when you walk in the door is understand who are the players and where the levers of success lie. And don't you know that this person walked in the door, identified levers of success, and has been recognized for a management training program that's like, wow, you walked in, we don't have many people walk in the way you walked in and with the mindset that you walked in at. And so that was awesome. And this person is amazing and doing very well.
There's a book, reminds me that is great advice. There's a book called The First 90 Days, not a new book.
Yeah.
It's a really good book. And it tends to be for senior leaders, right? About how you can, make an impact. But given your story, it reminds me how important it is for everybody starting a job that first impact you make wherever you are in your career is critical. The old saying about you don't get a second chance to make a first impression is true. Yeah. I'm going to tell you one more.
Okay. You go.
So I have a client who is brilliant at what they do technically, somebody who is from a URXcellent perspective in an underrepresented category. Okay. In an industry where they are highly underrepresented, right? And working to find their voice. And part of what I was working on with this particular client in 1 or 2 sessions was about how they had a proposal to make. It was their boss and a couple of people above them.
Oh my God, this is so familiar.
Right. And it was a politically hot button kind of an issue. And so you know what? That the COO, called the president in their company, said to them, I wish we had more finance people doing exactly what you're doing. They got a shout out from the president in the meeting.
Nice.
And afterwards, my client's boss called my client up. My client didn't have to reach out. I called my client up and said, that was fantastic. There was no finger pointing. It was data driven. You uncovered what needed to be uncovered. Client made herself look good, made her boss look good, and impressed the COO, president of the organization, and has ended up, she's a finance professional, ended up saving her company, working on saving her company a heck of a lot of money.
Nice. And it's interesting how in certain ways you mentioned something really interesting, right? I have all this data, I have this spreadsheet, I have this. And then I'm going to be presenting to, the senior people in the company, right? And so the gems, the diamonds get hidden in all of this fluff. And so I learned from a client this new acronym, BLUF.
Okay.
Bottom line, BLUF. Bottom line, I can't remember. I'm just going to edit this out. But the term,
bottom line up
front. Thank you. Bottom line up front. And so when I work with my clients, it's interesting how in resumes and in one client was doing a presentation, I'm like, you're hiding the gems in words. You're hiding the gems in paragraphs that should be bullet points. And you have too many words here, get to the point, because put yourself in the mindset of this senior executive team. Are you going to overwhelm them with this stuff that's not important to them, or the stuff that is important to them? Because those are the diamonds, and understand your audience. So kudos to your client.
Yeah, as we're talking about this, J.D.P., I want to kind of speak to the audience, and I'm hoping that what people are taking away is that, you don't have to wait until there's some big, huge moment in your life to hire a coach. And you certainly don't have to wait until, somebody at your organization says, Lori, we're not so pleased about how you did this year. Hire a coach and get better or get out, right? It doesn't have to be that. The coaches are your thinking partners, here to challenge you and walk by your side and support you. And sometimes making those little tweaks, as I said earlier, sometimes the little things are the big things, right? Make those tweaks, changes how you're perceived, how you perceive yourself. It's like planting seeds.
Yeah.
You're going to continue to grow in 2025.
2025 is coming, and we're going to get there in a minute. So, Lori, awesome stories, and it's amazing. So, what's going to okay, so let's put 2024 in the rearview mirror, and so let's the box.
Stick it on the shelf.
Thank you. Stick it on the shelf or in the ground or burn it or whatever. And let's look ahead to 2025. What? 2025? I didn't even think I'd make it this far. What? So I know I'm just so excited for 2025, and you're going to be right there along for the ride, and we're going to be doing amazing things in 2025. So what will be your focus for the new year for you personally, as a person, as a coach? What are some of the things you're looking to improve, change, leave the same? Good old bad habits, good old new habits. What's up with Lori for next year?
So, good question. So I think for me, it's a continuation of what we've been talking about, right? Recognizing what I do bring to the table and building on those strengths, right? Some of you may have heard there's been a discussion, should you strengthen your weaknesses or build on your strengths, right? And right now I'm at the point of let's build on my strengths. I had a 30-year career as a professor and a leader in higher education. I did some amazing things, and I don't need to contort myself into something that I'm not, right? There were some times this year I was like, well, I got to present myself as more corporate because that's what people want. And I think I'm going to lean into the fact that, my experience might not have been at General Electric, okay, or Procter and Gamble from a marketing world, right? The Procter and Gamble's like the be all and end all.
At P&G?
But I do have, as we've talked about, some really amazing skills that I'm going to lean into. We've talked about this before, my experience as an educator and an inspirer and somebody who believes in people. I taught for 30 years at the most diverse campus in the state of Indiana. Many first-generation college students who did find their voice and are doing amazing things, right? And so for me, I have spent this year doing coaching a bit on the quiet side because of other things that were happening in my life. And so for me, it's time to step up and lean in to doing the things that have happened this year are mostly in the past now. And so I have the time and the space to lean into who I am and to own that.
Hey, Lori, you smell that? It sounds like a book. Sounds like I think I hear a book.
Those are magic words to a former academic's ear. I've thought about that.
Okay.
Right? I've thought about this.
Guys, I always plant seeds for Lori.
I want to explore different things, right? I love the work I'm doing. I want to lean into focusing on, other ways to help people see their value. So I've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching. And I think one of the things that I'd really like to start doing is to do some work with small groups, because I think there's really some value there's real value in one-on-one. There's things you can do there, but there's also value in hearing, oh, you're having that challenge too. It's not just what Lori's telling me, it's that we're hearing this from other people, and there's sort of that multiplier effect. And so I really want to do some small group work, some focused small group work. So keep an eye out, folks. That's one of the things that I really want to do as we go forward.
Nice. Thank you.
What are you going to be up to?
My God. So 2025, I'll put it in the terms of a friend of mine. As a matter of fact, she was on the channel, Julissa Hermosen, super amazing person, la madrina latina, the Latin godmother. So she wrote a post on LinkedIn recently that said, hey, a couple of years ago, I set out to do these things, write a book, get paid speaking engagements, and do a TED Talk. These 3 things. That's what I'm going to be my focus. Here we are 2 years later. That's exactly what she did.
Wow.
For me, Julissa, if you're watching this, shout out, because you're an inspiration to me. Those are 3 things I want to do. I want to do speaking engagements, paid speaking engagements, like my other friend, Hadi Mendez, who, again, is an amazing, amazing person. And she's actually been one of my first interviews on the channel. At a ICF event recently, I met a person who is a book publishing coach. And we were talking, and I said, have a book here. She's like, okay, start journaling. I was like, I've been journaling for the past 20 years. She's like, oh, your book's already written.
Wow. No.
Did I do that?
Great. Thumbs. But you know what? She's right. Pull it out.
Yeah. So
do the work.
So, and in speaking, I have a lot that I want to get out from my own personal experience that could possibly help some people out there. Next year is going to be a year of focus, a year of commitment and intention for me. I'm excited. I'm thoroughly excited. As a matter of fact, I have a floral shirt out there right now waiting because I was going to change into it, but I still might. But I'll save that for the New Year show.
I think that's an excellent idea. That's
awesome.
Ring shiny.
Yeah.
I think, I often look back at the end of the year, and this is a quite different reflection back and thinking about where I want to go in 2025. It's also, this year is also going to be a big birthday for me. So it's, it's a chance, leaving that number on the table behind the scenes. Look, I'll own it. Okay, I'm going to be 60.
Woo! Own it, girl. You look wonderful. Go on.
But it's a chance, every decade is a chance, for me, certainly has been a chance to think about it. And this, given all that I've gone through this year, this is a really neat opportunity to take that big birthday and say, the world is my oyster.
Yeah.
I'm the one who has to make those changes.
Yeah.
And I can now. I'm in a place where I can.
You can. And one thing is, and we talked about this connection community earlier in the episode, you don't have to do that alone. We got you. Your family, your friends, your extended family, your extended friends, whatever, me, we got you. So
it helps to know you're not alone.
It helps to know you're not alone. And if you're out there, and this is a really fickle time of year for a lot of people, and I'm just going to get serious for a second. If you are feeling alone, if you are feeling, especially during this holiday season, such a way, seek out someone, anyone, or any service that might be available. And there's a description in the link below for services. Don't go at this by yourself, right? Especially this time of year.
And, if we're talking about this, if we're going to be serious, this is a tough time of year for a lot of people. And I'm going to give a shout out to the National Suicide Support Line, which is dial 988.
Absolutely.
You're not alone. There are people. It's a tough time of year.
It's a tough time of year. Yeah.
Reach in and talk to someone. There's always someone on the phone. If it's not somebody call 988.
Yeah. And just be aware. All right. Lori, we're looking with great optimism to 2025. 25, back when I was a kid, that was the future. And now we're living in the future.
The Jetsons, where's my flying car?
Hey, don't get me started on the Jetsons. Don't get me started on the future, even though I started us on the future. Because flying cars, okay, yeah, I get it. Where's my jetpack? I was promised a jetpack when I was a child.
That would be fun. Where's my robot maid?
Where's my like the Flintstones even? Where's my Barney copter? Remember that episode?
Oh my God.
All right. So let's look at what is it we're going to be cognizant that we're moving into 2025. What are we not going to carry forward?
I have a good one. And this is a lesson I learned from my dad. And sometimes I learned this, I think I was a junior in college. So I wrote it down on my notes for this meeting in a different way. But as you're talking about this, I'm going to let go of the idea that there is a right way, and to be successful, I have to hit certain metrics. Okay. I chased achievements for my entire life, measurable achievements. And I remember my dad has a PhD from MIT, right? And for my whole life, I was like, oh, Dad's so smart, and Dad this, and I got to impress Dad, and I can only tell Dad the good stuff, right? And I remember I called him up on my landline because that's what we had then. And I was busy telling him all about this class, and I did this, and my grade, and this and that. And I distinctly remember, I swear to God, I could have almost seen my dad holding the phone away. And here's what he said to me: Lori, what kill you to get a B? I'm like,
what?
You said Rose? Now I'm sounding old. What? I'm trying to impress him, and he's telling me we're to kill you to get a B. And for me, I think that's going to be my theme this year, that success comes in all different flavors. There's not a right way to do things. Take some risks. Hey, for years, people who know me would have called me the number one rule follower. I got far by being a rule follower. Let's be honest.
Play by the rules, get ahead.
But I think it's time that can, I think there's a place for that. It can go being part of the box, but I think that there is time for me this year it's okay to get a B. It's okay to try things, to not be the most brilliant at them, but you tried something and you'll grow from that. And my dad's point, by the way, in that was, Lori, you're in college not just to learn stuff, but to grow emotionally, socially. And I was like, it is the most profound thing my father has ever said to me.
Nice.
And so I'm taking Dad to heart, and it's okay. There's not a right way. Try
Kudos to now. What's your dad's name?
Bruce.
kudos to Dr. Bruce. You the man. Look at your daughter. She's amazing. And it was sort of, I could see you choking on next. I'm going to try to get a B because I know what a perfectionist you are.
It's hard. So that's my goal. I mean, as weird as that sounds, right? Some people are like, what are you talking about? That's such a bizarre goal, right? Don't you want to achieve here? No, I want to give myself permission to explore and to try and to fail and, and to say it's okay. People aren't going to put on their glasses and look down their nose at you because we're all figuring it out as we go. So it's okay, Lori. It's okay. And if I can do that and keep trying stuff, that'll be a huge win for me. So I'm going to let go of the fact that there's a right way and there's a right measure of success. I'm going to let go of it.
Okay.
Maybe it should be that way. Bye. What are you letting go of this year? What do you leave in the past?
We touched on the theme of good habits and good old bad habits.
From your mom. Ooh, mom and dad are doing good today.
Yeah, shout out to Doña Yolanda Mercedes Gonzalez. May she rest in peace. So I'm going to be letting go of good old bad habits and shaking off some good old good habits. So for example, recently, maybe about a month now, I've shaken off a good old good habit and started going back to the gym.
Bravo.
Right. And realizing that, I'm not a small guy, but I'm not the biggest guy either. But, when I remember taking, the 50, 60 pound dumbbells and, and this time I went to the gym and I looked at the rack and I recognized, no.
Not how.
Later, the gorilla weights later. Right now, I took the 15 pounders and just realizing that I had to start again. But that's okay. But I've regularly been going, and I'm a person who needs structure. So I set a time, 7 a.m. Started out at 6, but that was a little unrealistic. 7 a.m. I am in the gym, half an hour of cardio, half an hour of weights, and I'm out in just 1 hour a day. And when I'm not in the gym, I'm walking the dog for 4 hours. It's a very brisk 4-mile walk run.
Wow. Good.
Yeah. So good habits and shaking good old bad habits. That comes good old good habits and good old bad habits tend to balance each other out, and good old bad habits is all about worthiness, right? Worthiness. And we all battle with worthiness. And I am working on rediscovering my worth and validating my worth through the things that I do, those 3 things that I outlined earlier that I want to do. And this is not for show or for anyone out there to look at me. Look at John, look at him go. This is for me at the right young age. Yes, 63 years old, girl. Yeah. So that's the stuff I'm leaving in the back, good old bad habits, the stuff that I'm pushing forward, good old good habits.
We're back to those themes of, rediscovery and transformation. It sounds like we're both there.
Rediscovery and transformation. That's the theme for 2025. I want you all to write that down. It's going to show up here on the screen somewhere. So Lori, we've been talking a lot. How do we land this ship? Because again, we are the extemporaneous of the most extemporaneous people I know. So how do we land this? How do we close out this Coach's Corner? How do we close out this 2024 in a way that's meaningful for you? I know words that are meaningful for me, but what do you think?
Well, if we want to go with words, I was thinking a different thing, but if we want to go with words, I'm going to go with where I have landed in December of 2024 after a very tumultuous year. I've landed on peaceful. It has been the most tumultuous year of my life. But today, on Friday, December 20th, I can tell you that I, for the first time in a long time, feel peaceful and hopeful. I mean, I was telling J.DP before, you can see this piece of art and these statues in the background. And I have a nice collection of art, and I finally had somebody come and put them up in my home, and it made a difference in how I feel about me and my place. It's just what's important to me. And I feel a sense of peace and comfort and a landing spot. And so for me, it's peace and comfort. And now I can see that it's a launch pad for 2025. So I'm going to go with peaceful.
Nice. Peaceful. I like that.
What's your word this year? Close it out.
Wow. I set a booby trap for myself because I don't. Oh, so to close out 2024 and look ahead for 2025, I'm going to go with something that is part of the identity of URXcellent, and that's the R. That is resilience. This, for those of you who don't know, my father 1 year ago on Christmas Day passed away, and that messed me up for months. Depression, I don't care who you are and what you might think. Depression is real. Get help if you're feeling depressed, especially during the holiday season. And that really hindered the beginning of my 2024 and really affected me throughout. And I sought help and was able to get my mind right. In 2025, in 2024, I was able to tap into my resilience, and I'm going to double down on resilience in 2025.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love
and
it.
we're sitting with the silence, girl, because that's deep.
Sit with the silence. That was a pretty profound lesson for my client. And actually, it's something I've talked about with a couple of clients. If you ever want to talk to me about it, reach out. We can talk about sitting with the silence. It's a really hard skill to develop, by the way. Sit with the silence. 4 words, sounds, I can do that. It's so hard and it takes a lot of practice, but there's huge payoff for that. Not only at work, by the way, folks, at home too.
So Coach's Corner is for coaches by coaches. Any advice for new coaches out there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, here it comes. This is going to be good.
There is not one right way to coach. So I'm going to go back to my things that I'm letting go of for this year. There is not one right way to coach. There are really important principles and practices that the ICF, wants us to follow. But coaching is about people, right? It's about the client and developing bespoke solutions for those clients. It's not a factory. We're not widgets. And we're people. The way John works and the way I work are complementary, but they're different because we bring different strengths to the table. And so for us to try to, be in a phone bank, a call center and answer the phone with the same script as a coach doesn't work, right? We have to lean into what we bring to the table. And while he and I, we both have a very similar style and an approach because we have very different but similar backgrounds. I think for new coaches out there isn't a right way. Find your voice and give yourself time to find the audience that you connect with the most and to whom you can offer the most value. It's been one of the things I've spent this year trying to figure out. So give yourself time to figure it out. And don't worry that you're not doing it the right.
Yeah. And if I had to offer a piece of advice to new coaches out there, lean on your ICF community. Get out there and get to a local ICF chapter, get to know other coaches, because I'm approached by a lot of new coaches who are torn between, do I go out and strike out on my own? Do I become an internal coach for XYZ company? I'm torn, but I have family commitments, or I don't have family commitments, or hey, I'm recently retired, or hey, any number of different things. So reach out to your ICF community. That should be one of your first stops. And you will be amazed at the people and the support that you'll get. Lori, this was fun.
As always.
20, let's go.
Right, let's go. And so just so you know, I am in Chicago. By the time that New Year's Eve comes around, I'm going to use your location as my countdown.
All right.
I can't make it up till midnight. We are going to launch. We are going to transform. We are going to own our own successes. We are going to be resilient in 2025, and we're going to explore, and it's okay to get a B.
Guys, I'm Coach J.DP.
I'm Dr. Lori.
And you are excellent. Thanks for joining us on our year-end wrap-up. We'll see you in the new year. 2025, here we come. Woo!
See you in 2025.
All right. Take care, you guys. See you next time. Bye.